Hi, I'm Joe Black with Yoga Panels, and I'm here today to talk about the two questions we get asked the most. The first question we get asked is, what is infrared? What is an infrared wavelength? And I'd like to discuss that today, kind of explain what is infrared. And the other question, the second question we always get asked is, okay, I understand infrared. What infrared heater should I be using in my yoga studio? Or what is an infrared yoga panel? So behind me I have a bunch of different infrared heaters. Here I have our heaters, yoga panels. These are infrared heaters that have been designed to produce infrared heat for a yoga studio. Here on my left I also have infrared panels. They might look the same, but these are infrared space heaters. These are panels that have been designed just to heat space. So I'd like to discuss what is infrared and what is the difference between these panels. Now, while they might look the same, they're very different. These panels, infrared panels, are designed for heating offices, warehouses, restaurants, spaces where you have a large amount of air but you don't want to waste heating costs. So you use infrared panels to try to heat objects. While they might look the same, yoga panels, infrared panels, they're very different. The easiest way I've explained it to people is to think about yoga panels like Lululemon yoga pants. They're designed for yoga. They're made to move, to stretch. They have a specific design, whereas infrared panels are designed for offices, warehouses, heating areas that are generally outdoors or large spaces. It'd be like Carhartt pants. Carhartts versus Lululemons. While they're both pants, they have very different uses. One is used for working in. It's very durable and tough, doesn't stretch, while the other is used for yoga. It has a specific design. So when we talk about infrared, okay, our first thing, what is infrared? I like to discuss heat to start with. When you're talking about heating, there's two ways to heat. You have convection heat and infrared. Convection is like your home fireplace or the forced air in your house or a baseboard heater. There's a heating element. The heating element heats the air, then the air heats you. That's convection heat. Infrared, or radiant heat as it's often called, there's a heating element which heats you directly. So there's different ways to heat. Convection, radiant. With yoga, you always want to use radiant. And you think about it, why am I using radiant versus convection? With convection heat, you're heating the air. The air gets really hot and then the air heats you. With convection, you tend to get hyperthermia, you tend to get dizziness, overheated. It's not good for the human body in extended periods of time. With radiant heat, you're heating the body directly. And with infrared, which is the proper radiant heat, you're getting infrared or radiant heat directly into your muscles, tissues, blood systems, sinews, helps everything to move. It's healthy for the human body. It's the same rate at which the human body emits infrared, it can receive infrared. So with these two types of heating systems, convection versus radiant, while you're heating your home, ambient temperature, convection is great. With radiant heat, especially infrared heat, its purpose is to heat the human body. Its purpose is to give a beneficial heat that the human body can absorb while getting the most benefits possible. That leads us to our first question. We've kind of explained what is infrared. It's a radiant heat. So when it comes to infrared, there are different types of infrared, different types of radiant heaters. The most commonly seen infrared heater is at restaurant patios, and those are called quartz heaters. You see them up high, they have a big red element that's burning. It's a radiant heat, but it's not giving out the correct wavelength. The other issue with a quartz heater is it's really hot. So that's why when you're sitting in the restaurant patio and you feel that heat, you can only stay there for a little bit of time before you have to move because your skin is just feeling like it's getting too hot. The second type of common infrared heaters are these industrial infrared panels. So here we have the Marley Go Anywhere panel, and here is the Prestel in-home heating infrared panel. So while these are infrared heating panels, what it is inside the heater here, you have an aluminum core which heats up, and then you have a ceramic coating or a glass coating, and when that aluminum core heats, the glass or ceramic is supposed to filter the heat coming through to produce infrared. It works well in an office or residential setting. If I was doing my garage at home, I would definitely install these. And the third type of infrared heaters we have are yoga panels, or also infrared sauna heaters, infrared heaters for incubators for newborn babies. It's infrared that is designed for the human body, not just designed to heat space. And that's where these yoga panels come in. The highest quality type of infrared heater is called a carbon fiber heating core. These are carbon fiber elements, which means this whole element is an infrared panel. There's no core that's going to heat unevenly. The whole thing is an infrared panel. Okay, so now that I've discussed a couple different types of infrared heaters, I'll explain just quickly about infrared. Infrared is like light. It's just below visible light. And what it is, it's the wavelength. And proper infrared for the human body is between 6 and 13 microns, with the majority at 9.4. So if you think of a wave, the majority of the wave is at 9.4. That's where your body can absorb infrared. That's where your body emits infrared. That's a proper infrared wavelength. That's what you want. When you're practicing yoga under an infrared heater, if you're not using the proper infrared heater, you're just getting convection heat. You're not getting that good radiant heat that the body can absorb and can use. So infrared is a radiant heat that your body can absorb, just like what you get from the sun. When you're laying outside on a sunny day and you feel that warmth from the sun, that's infrared heat. That's what you want, and that's what these heaters produce. Since infrared is so important, especially getting that perfect infrared wavelength, I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between a yoga panel and an infrared panel. So these carbon fiber yoga panels produce 98 to 99% of their infrared in that correct wavelength, between 6 and 13 microns, with the majority at 9.4. They also have 98 to 99% effectiveness, which means 98 to 99% of this heating panel is producing infrared in the correct wavelength. They're designed to heat the human body. They're designed for yoga. They're designed to give out as close to perfect as infrared as possible. Whereas infrared panels, especially the Marley Go Anywhere panel, produces between 50 to 60% of its infrared in the far infrared wavelength range. The Presto panel produces a little bit better. It's about 60 to 70%. The downside is, with both of these panels, only about 60% of this heating surface produces infrared. So when we look at these panels under an infrared imaging camera, the whole face of this panel will light up, and it's completely even. It will all look red or different shades of red because the whole panel is heating and it's giving off infrared. When we look at the infrared panels under an infrared camera, you'll see lines that are hot. The lines will be red and then they'll be yellow on the outsides. That's because this panel is only producing 60 to 70% of its infrared in the correct range. And while it's only producing 60 to 70% correct infrared, it's also only producing 60 to 70% surface heat. So you're getting an inefficient heat and getting an improper infrared wavelength. So when we talk about far infrared, there's also near infrared, medium infrared. If you think of the scope of infrared light, it goes from about 0 to 20,000. Near infrared is about 0 to 2. Medium infrared is about 2 to 5. And far infrared is measured from about 5 to 20,000. Now you really want to stay away from 0 to 5. And that's where like the quartz infrared heaters work. That's kind of where about 20% of these heaters are producing. Or, you know, those red lights that you see for incubators for little baby chickens, those are producing near infrared heat. So while they have specific uses, like these are great to heat an office or a warehouse, you don't want them directly heating the human body for extended periods of time because it's not what they were designed for. Whereas a proper infrared heating panel, you could stay under this panel indefinitely as long as you stay hydrated and had enough electrolytes in your system. It's designed for the human body. So there's a couple other major differences between yoga panels and infrared panels, and it has to do with the construction of the panel, the quality of the heater, the core, and I'd like to talk about those next. So to recap a little bit, we've been talking about what is infrared, what is an infrared heater versus what is a yoga panel. If you're still at all confused about infrared or the wavelength or the microns, feel free to call us at any time. Our sales agents are here to discuss what is infrared, to answer any questions you have. Call us, we'd love to hear from you. So now that we've talked about what is infrared and a little bit about it, the difference between infrared panels, I'd like to go ahead and take a couple apart and show you the difference between an infrared panel and a yoga panel and the construction quality, just everything that's involved. So what I have behind me here, I have the Marley Go Anywhere panel. The Presto panel is the same construction, so I don't need to take both of them apart. And I have our yoga panel. This is our aluminum framed modern series. We also have the wood series. I don't need to show you both because the heating core is exactly the same. Whether it's our white or our black core, the only thing that changes is the frame. So I'll start with the Marley panel. So if I take this panel here, This is the Marley Go Anywhere panel. It's designed for offices or restaurants. The front of the panel here is an aluminum piece of metal. So it's a real thin gauge aluminum, and this white coating here is a ceramic coating. So what they do is they mix ceramic with glues and a little bit of polyurethane, and they basically paint the ceramic coating onto the aluminum. So you have a lot of glues, a lot of different chemical compounds on the front of the panel here, and what's supposed to happen is the ceramic is supposed to filter the infrared so that you actually get infrared heat. So if I take off this cover here, I'll set this aside. So this right here is your heating element. So this is just the back of the panel. It's just a piece of tin metal. Nothing special here. This is what they're selling you. So what we have here is, I don't really want to touch it because it's insulation and I'll itch for days, but you have a piece of really thin insulation, and then behind the insulation, I'll just throw that to the side. This is your core right here. So you have a piece of aluminum wire with a little bit of aluminum braiding on top of it that has been glued to the back of a really thin piece of aluminum foil. So this is what heats. And this is why you'll see, if I show you the front, the lines. Because the only thing in this panel that's heating is this really thin wire. And they try to use this aluminum to focus the heat forward. So you get about 70–80% of your heat coming forward and 20 to 30% of it being lost out the back. And also, if you can see, you really only have about 10% of this panel that's producing heat. And it's producing a really high amount of heat off this coil. This coil actually gets almost red hot. And the theory is that the heat produced from this thin coil will filter through the ceramic and give you an infrared wavelength. And it does. It works well for what it's designed. Garages, offices. I would put one in my garage without issue, or in a warehouse. But you see what you get. This is the Marley Go Anywhere and the Presto. This is their heating element. So I'll just go ahead and set this aside for now. So next I'd like to show you a yoga panel. A panel that's been designed to heat the human body, that's been designed to work primarily for infrared saunas, incubators for newborn babies, or infrared yoga. So here we have the yoga panel. So they do look very similar, and let's get into a bit of the differences. So the frame of the yoga panel is a piece of aluminum, or we have the wood frame. It's just the frame material. Any and all of our coatings are VOC free. So that's kind of a big term, VOC. VOC stands for a volatile organic compound. They're compounds that when heated give off a bad emission. So like, when you walk into a place that's been painted, it smells really strong. That's the paint off-gassing an organic compound, and you can smell that chemical. So while the Marley panel uses a ceramic coating that's not VOC free, all of our paints or any of our coatings that are used on any of our panels are all natural VOC free coatings. So that means that there'll never be any off-gassing, there'll never be any smell. It's completely safe for any space. So that's just our frame. I'll set that to the side. Here I'd like to pull out the carbon fiber heating core. So this is the yoga panel. This is the heating core. As you can see, the whole core, with the exception of about ½ an inch around the edges, is carbon fiber. So what it is, it's a piece of carbon fiber that's been pressed between 10 layers of non-conductive material. There's no glues. It's a tempering process that they use heat and about 10,000 pounds of pressure. And then electricity is run through the carbon fiber weave, producing infrared. 100% of the infrared comes forward. The only heat that would be out the back would just be convection heat that's given off from all the heat on the surface. So here you can see the cores are about ½ an inch thick. There's a little bit of non-flammable VOC-free insulation in here just to give it a little bit of rigidity. And then we have our tin back. So for UL standards, ETL for electrical codes, all heating appliances need to have a tin back. So we see that here. So that's the major difference. Here you have a complete carbon fiber infrared panel. You're not going to lose any inefficiency with the heating core. It's a lot thicker, it's more durable. The shelf life for a carbon fiber element is around 200,000 hours, whereas the shelf life for the Marley Go Anywhere panel ranges about 8 to 10,000 hours. So while 8 to 10,000 is a long time, it's nowhere near the run life of a carbon fiber panel. Okay, I've put everything away and I've just got out our 2 yoga panels. So to recap a little bit, we've talked about what is infrared, what's an infrared wavelength, what's an infrared heater versus a yoga panel. And we've talked about the differences in construction, the quality of the panel, the quality of the heater, the evenness of the heat. So just to end, I'd like to just go over a little bit about our 2 panels. Here we have our modern white yoga panel, and next to it we have our open black yoga panel. So these are both infrared yoga panels. The carbon fiber core between the white and the black is exactly the same. The only difference is this one's white, that one's black. This is an aluminum frame, this is a wood frame. So it's basically just difference in preference. The wood frame, when Chip Wilson and his wife were looking to build their very own yoga studio in their home, they decided to go with our open black wood framed heater because they liked the look of the natural wood. They thought it had more warmth to it, and this is the product they decided to go with. Whereas Lifetime Fitness just built a brand new studio in Massachusetts with 2 brand new yoga studios, infrared yoga studios. They went with the modern white. They liked the more modern look of the aluminum frame. They felt that they could suspend them from the ceiling a little easier. And it was their preference for all their studios moving forward to stick with the modern white. The infrared wavelength is the same, the build quality is the same. You're just switching between a wood frame or white frame, whether you want a white panel or a black panel. Both panels can be mounted directly to a ceiling. They can be hung from the ceiling. They can be mounted in a T-bar. Well, I hope I've answered your questions. If you're still unsure about anything, please visit our website or give one of our sales agents a call. We also have an in-house designer who can help with any layout issues you might have. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you.